How to get closer to God. Hey, what's up? It's Patrick. It's Rose via Fire. And I pray this message reaches who it needs to reach. So let's talk about how to get closer to God, man. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm going to keep it real with you, bro. I know y'all be seeing a lot of people. For example, let's say a new year is coming up. And then you be seeing people talking about this year, I'm going to get closer to God, bro. This year, I'm working on my relationship with God, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to tell you, bro, a lot of these people who say that they are trying to get closer to God, you gotta ask yourself a question, right? Are you getting closer to God God's way? Are you getting closer to God your way? Are you getting closer to God the social media way? Are you getting closer to God the religious way? Which way are you getting closer to God, bro? Because when I tell you, bro, 9 times out of 10 of these people, bro, talking about it getting closer to God and this and that, it's just for the aesthetic, bro. It's just like for the world, bro. Are you getting closer to God the world's way? Which way are you getting closer to God, bro? And when you start to ask these questions, you start to realize, bro, these people ain't getting closer to God, bro. These people is not getting closer to God, bro. I'm trying to tell you, bro. They not getting closer to God. These people, they think they're getting closer to God, but they not getting closer to God His way. They getting closer to God their way, or the social media way, or the world's way, or the religious way. These people is not getting closer to God, bro. Trust me, bro. I've seen how these people move, bro. Everything that's regarding to God, people don't even give it no effort, bro. People don't have like the patience and the effort. It's like people is trying to get closer to God the easy way, the worldly way, the social media aesthetic way. Nobody really trying to get closer to God for real. And you could tell by when you really trying to, let's say a lot of these people is like, oh, this year that's coming up, man, I want to build my relationship with God. I want to get closer to God. And if, let's say you're a real follower of God, right? And you talk to them and be like, hey, so this is how you get closer to God and this and that. They're not trying to hear that. So I'm like, wait, what way is you trying to get closer to God? If I'm telling you the real way of getting closer to God and you don't want to hear it, I'm telling you, bro, people is not following the same stuff, bro. People is not trying to get closer to the same God. These people is trying to get closer to the worldly version of God that allows them to have this aesthetic for social media so they could continue to live their life. You know what I'm saying? These people is trying to get closer to God without surrender. Bro, that's what the world is pushing. The world is pushing this whole aesthetic of getting closer to God without surrender. The world is pushing this. Y'all, bro, it's like you really have to pay attention to what's going on, bro. You really have to be like paying attention. These people talking about it getting closer to God, bro, they not, bro. You really have to be paying attention what's going on, bro. Because when you tell them the real way of getting closer to God, they're going to get mad and frustrated. Why? Because getting closer to the real God is a nightmare, bro. It's not easy. It requires you to fully surrender your life. Which leads me into how do you actually get closer to God? Well, you get closer to God by fully surrendering your entire life to God, bro. You gotta make up your mind, bro, and be like, you know what? I'm gonna separate myself from the world. I'm gonna separate myself from the wrong people, the wrong crowds, and I'm fully gonna surrender 100% of my life to God. They don't want to hear that. You tell them about surrender. The same people that's talking about they want to get closer to God, you tell them about fully surrendering their life, they ain't trying to hear it, bruh. That because they ain't trying to get closer to the real God. They done made up their own imaginary God in their mind that they trying to get closer to. They ain't trying to get closer to the real God. They done made up their own versions of God that they trying to get closer to. You know what I'm saying? But you got to make up your mind that you really want to surrender your entire life to God, bro. That's one way that you get closer to God. You have to fully surrender your life to God, bro. You got to give up everything to follow God, bro. That's one way you get closer to God, bro. And then another way you get closer to God, bro, is you gotta surrender, bro. Like, wait, I just said that. Let's move on. Another way that you get closer to God, bro, you gotta spend a lot of alone time with God, bro. You gotta spend a lot of alone time with God, bro. Know what I'm saying? You gotta spend alone time with God. It's just you and God, bro. Just you and God. Spend a lot of alone time with God, bro. Just you and God, bro. Let it be you reading your word. Let it be you worshiping God. Let it be like, you know what I'm saying? You could get creative. You could get creative in how you spend your alone time with God, bro. Use your creativity, use your imagination, but bro, like, you gotta spend a lot of alone time with God, bro. That's how you get closer to God, bro, the right way. You gotta step away from religion. That's another way you get closer to God. You gotta leave all these religions behind. You gotta leave all these Christianity, being a Christian. You gotta leave all this stuff behind, bro. God been told us about this stuff, bro. This stuff been getting exposed over and over. You gotta leave these religions, bro. The Muslim religions, the Mormons and the Catholics and the Hinduism and the Buddhism and all this stuff, man. Like, you gotta leave all this stuff behind, bruh. All these weird religion, bruh. You know, you gotta leave all this stuff behind, bro. That's how you really get closer to God, bro. But man, people is mentally gone now. People is mentally gone behind religion. To whereas even when you bring up the name God, people is ready to debate. People is ready to throw like an angry debate just by you simply talking about the name Jesus or God. That because the name God and Jesus is surrounded by so much religious debates. That's why people need to get away from that religion. All these religion, bro. If you're trying to get closer to God, you step away from all these religion, bro. You step away from the Hebrew Israelite. You know what I'm saying? The Hebrew Israelite on the street corner, bro. You step away from that too. You step away from all these like cults and religions, bro. You gotta step away from everything and really go after God for yourself, bro. Man, these people be having all type of weird doctrines, bro. You know what I'm saying? These people out here, man, they be having all these weird doctrines that they be following, all these idol gods, bro. Crazy, bro. But another way that you get closer to God, man, you gotta walk in your purpose and calling that God has for you. That's how you get closer to God, bro. You gotta, how do you find God's purpose and calling for your life? Well, you find that by seeking God. Know what I'm saying? You seek after God and you ask God, please, God, reveal to me what your purpose and calling for my life is. But you really have to seek God consistently, bro. And he gonna keep showing you and revealing to you over time. You gotta put in the years. Some of these people trying to get closer to God overnight. They ain't even trying to put in the years. See, people don't want to hear the word years when it comes to God, bro. They ain't got that type of endurance, bro. You know what I'm saying? But because you got to understand, when you're walking in your purpose and you're calling for God, it automatically gets you closer to God, bro. When you're walking in your purpose and calling for God, it automatically gets you closer to God. That's why it's important to walk in your purpose and calling for God, man. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people today, bro, they getting closer to like a made up God, bro, that they made up in their own head, bro. It's not the real God, bro. You know what I'm saying? And hold on. Another way that you get closer to God is walking in obedience to God's plan, bro, that he has for your life, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's going to get you closer to God. Walking in obedience to God's voice over your life. That going to get you closer to God, man. So that's pretty much how you get closer to God the right way, bro. All these people talking about they getting closer to God, they doing it because it's trending, because it's an aesthetic, because it's popular. They ain't getting closer to God for real, bro. 9 times out of 10, these people are just playing pretend, bro. They playing social media aesthetic, bro. They not really trying to get closer to God, bro. But yeah, that's how you really, truly, if you genuinely want to get closer to God, bro, that's the right way, bro. These people out here is not trying to get closer to God, bro. And when you have a conversation with them, you're going to be able to tell, bro. They not trying to get closer to God for real. They just playing. They just in it for the image, bro. They don't care, bro. But that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say, bro. Peace.